All right, then. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, evening, wherever you're joining us from. It's wonderful to be here with you today. I, Harlina Sodi, along with Supriya Dana, are very pleased to spend this next 30, 40 minutes with you, talking to you about something that's on top of our mind last few weeks, actually few months, and something we feel very strongly and passionate about, a social well-being. As we started to use this word, many of you reached out saying, what is it really? While I'll let Supriya talk more about it, I just want you to know that we've been hearing about physical well being a lot, also much about the mental well being. But really, social well being is the third angle of the whole triangle without which it'll kind of topple over. It's about you as a social animal, I as a social animal, have to exist in a space filled with people. We have different words for it: humanity, community, society, and we are not able to really get to any of that for many, many months in the past and anytime future. There has been loss and sorrow, anxiety and loneliness. Every home, every heart across the world pretty much has been grieving and been going through a lot. There's only one way for us to kind of move forward, and that is together. It is my pleasure and an absolute gratitude. I'd like to call on Supriya, who's the country manager and vice president for Western Digital, having her join her here on LinkedIn Live today, and just say who she is and why is she here.
Thanks, Alina. That's a beautiful and a very simple question to say who I am and why I'm here. I think the why is far more important. Very happy to be here at LinkedIn Live in collaboration with Believe in Yourself, your initiative and your wonderful brainchild, representing Western Digital. So Western Digital is a global company with about $18 billion. We are in the storage solution space. What we do is we make flash and HDD based products, and a lot of it that goes on into the storage. We say 40% of that is powered by Western Digital technology that our consumers out there are using. So very proud of the work we do, and it's an essential infrastructure during the times when digitization has happened. We have kind of helped power on the lives. So it's a very noble cause is what we belong to. Why are we here today? We are here as at this platform, very favorite LinkedIn platform of mine, and sharing the stage with you to discuss, like you rightly said, to say what is social well-being. As the country manager for India, my responsibility includes looking after the India employees, sustaining, developing, and then interacting with the ecosystem, because we as a company believe in giving back to the communities. So happily looking forward to the conversation as to demystifying what social well-being is and why is it that the cause is so important to us.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And as more viewers keep joining us, I want to kind of say that again. Believe in Yourself, along with Western Digital India, is put together a virtual event called the Social Wellbeing Believe in Yourself Way. It goes live at 10:30 a.m. India time on 21st June. We've been very mindful about picking the date 21st June, which is a Monday. And when I set that date out, many people said, are you out of your mind? Who will ever come to your event? It's on Monday, 10:30 a.m. There are Monday blues and people are logging in after 2 days. But belief is, and you will hear me say that word many times, is that those who believe, those who are committed, those who understand the value and the impact of social well-being will make the time for it. That's one. The second and the more important reason is that the date 21st June coincides with United Nations International Yoga Day. It's something that our Prime Minister kind of pitched and presented and got institutionalized as part of UN Days of Celebration. It's not so much about physical exercise. This day is about holistic well-being. It's a coming together, a meshing together of physical, mental, spiritual, and social well-being. And we thought, what could be better that we, being here in India and with Western Digital India leadership team, kind of bring this a small gift and an offering to the larger Indian society and community, while many across the world are also going to join us. This event and this day is really about creating conversation, and via those conversation, up the ante on awareness. That's all we can do, but that will make a difference. Many movements of like that will take us to a tipping point. So stay tuned with us as we bring you more bits and bytes and nuggets about the social well-being BIY Way event on 21st. But for now, let me flip back to our conversation today. So Surya, hordes of questions that we crowdsourced from some of our volunteers. And there are two or three which kept coming again and again. The first one is, I've heard you and they've heard you say, we care a lot. You know, you use these two words so often, it's part of your DNA. Where is it coming from?
Thanks, Selena. Yes, so when we talk about Western Digital, our core values are fairly simple and yet they run deep within our DNA across the world. It is think big, which is about innovation. It is do it together, which is all about collaboration. And it's make it happen, which is about execution. And when our human resources team worldwide set out the journey, I think a few years back, they also wanted to extend into the cultural attributes. What are those attributes? And to keep the conversation short, one of the very significant, important cultural attribute is we care. It's about the power of giving back to the community. We all human beings come together, but there is a dedicated team, Global Giving and Doing team, which is part of our human resources worldwide leadership team that works with the executive leadership across the HQ and the regions. And their key role is how is it that we essentially give back to the communities that we take so much from. So our Global Giving and Doing team during the pandemic understood what India is going through, and they have come back, and partnered. We've done multiple initiatives under their leadership. They've partnered with a NGO and looked at a 30-bed portable hospital. We are partnering with NGO to assist. How is it that we distribute medical equipment and other items of essential care? We're also partnering with Indian Institute of Science on how beautifully indigenously developed they have the low cost but ICU grade ventilator, and that's something that we are pioneering, and we are kind of just joining them in their wonderful effort. So I think that's where we are. We truly think and believe and care. Our employees care. They come forward and are part of so many volunteering activities. So I would say with a lot of humility and pride that we care as part of our fabric at Western Digital. We believe in the ecosystem evolving together, and therefore social well-being is a very important part wherein we as communities need to come together and give back and take in from communities. I think, Helena, that's where it's coming from.
No, thank you for sharing that. And it's quite a lot. And I absolutely sometimes love the sound of it when a corporate leader, a business P&L leader like you who are running large companies choose to talk about stuff like this. It's really walking the talk on things that we hear many leaders like you to say, let's do the right thing. Let's stay true to our company purpose. Let's stay deeply anchored in our values. And when people like you step up, it kind of makes it all come together so beautifully. So thank you for that. The next question that we have for you is on social inclusion. We're also hearing this word a lot. Does it truly matter? And I'm going to give you a contrarian point of view. Darwin theory is all about survival of the fittest. People adapt. Whatever the new normal be, people will make it. The fittest will make it faster. The others will trail behind and kind of settle into some kind of a routine. So what's this big deal about social inclusion? Is it too much ado about nothing, like Shakespeare said, or is it for real?
I love a challenge and I like controversy. You just got me excited on this one, Helena. So I'm going to, you have a lot of people that you spoke about, Darwin, Shakespeare, wow, both our favorite. I'm going to throw in another few important, people that we learn from. You see Gautam Buddha back in the picture who said that, when words are both true and kind, they can truly change the world. That is something which is very beautiful. We all sometimes don't see the value and the importance of the words. I have learned a lot in life to say choice of good words, especially when they come from seat of power or influence. We say change starts at the top. So I think that's important. That's one saying that I would love to quote as I answer. The second is to say Socrates, who says that an examined life is worth living. Now, what pandemic has done, Helena, we are all aware, it has first of all impacted the worldwide audience in a similar way. People sitting in US, Europe, India, Asia, EMEA, everybody's got impacted in a similar way. It has been universal in its impact. There is a GDP that has got impacted worldwide in India and other regions. There are business models that have got disrupted. Um, Yet, I would say, while I'm talking about change at one end, human race has been resilient. We have evolved new business models. Digitization has happened overnight, whereas it was definitely going to happen. It would have happened over many years, but it has happened overnight. We are socially distanced. Yes, I would say we are physically distanced. But if you look at the World Happiness Report 2021, one that I spent a lot of time of my weekend, mulling over, it's a fascinating report that says we are saying we are not socially distant. We are physically distant, but socially connected. And there comes in an aspect of social inclusion and well being. So, coming back to your Darwin, absolutely we are going to adapt. We have adapted. I think our evolved form, an adapted form now is we will form our networks more intentionally than perhaps differently that we've done in the past. We will be intentional about connecting, networking, reaching out, putting empathy first and business later. Business will happen. But if my mindset, my space, I don't feel belonged, I don't feel connected, my productivity is definitely going to be at a different level than perhaps when I'm engaged, involved, and I feel my organization or my community cares for me. So, one of the highlights I'll quickly touch upon in the World Happiness Report that talks about is countries where there is high amount of trust and there is a high level of benevolence that people feel that they care. That is a higher and a better and a resilient response economically to COVID than perhaps other countries. They have managed the waves better, they've evolved better, they've managed their economies better because their people believe in the state, believe in the governance, and they believe in the communities. So I would believe that we are going to adapt in a lot more socially inclusive way, and that is perhaps going to be our story of success. Now, if there are those, like in the world of technology, some are early adopters, some are laggards, and some perhaps don't adapt much, my sense is this is going to be a similar story. Some of us will come forward and say, this is the way to go because we've learned, adapted, evolved, and therefore reflected. And now we make a conscious choice. Some of us will perhaps think differently and maybe late to adoption. I doubt there will be room for those who don't adopt, but there is room for everyone in this world. And that's true inclusion to say it's okay if you don't want to adapt and live the old norms. I think there's room for those too. But I think the success will more squarely be reaped in terms of human beings coming together and our resilience coming together. So social well-being is here to stay, Harlina, which is why you and I are having this wonderfully important and critical conversation, is what I would say.
No, absolutely. I couldn't really concur more, and I will accede that point to you, and I will live to fight another battle in a little while with you. But I want to take a moment and thank all those who are joining in. I see everyone logging in by the dozens, and we have participation from Africa, Dubai, Singapore, somebody just been from New Zealand, Philippines. Uh, Naveen Sharma says, gratitude to you, Supriya, for investing your time and energy on the subject. Health, happiness, and peace of mind has become basic needs, and it's wonderful to have a business leader step up to talk about it. Agatha is putting in a lot of comments there saying he's picked a quote from Socrates and kind of built on that a little bit, saying, the example of life is living. And that's really the core of it. And many people, actually, somebody just pinged to say, I'm from Seattle, US. Oh, wow. Okay, at this time, Seattle, US joining in. So thank you, everyone.
Awesome.
As you were kind of answering that question, Supriya, you used the word together about 6 or 7 times. And as you said that, I have my iPad next to me as well. This poem I just kind of brought up this poem, which is my favorite poem. It's called Together. And that's my life mantra, together and togetherness. And this poem is by Alison Gordon, and she says, we will hold hands together, laugh and smile together, share our secrets together, and help each other together. We will confess our fears together. We will wipe each other's tears together, comfort each other together, and confide in each other together. We will talk about the darkness together. We will write depressing poems together. slit our wrists together, scream in pain together. We will embrace the sorrow together, and together we shall make it through the storm, always
Beautiful.
together. It's wonderfully written and so apt for our times. All right,
Beautiful,
so
Alina.
coming back to you, yes, thank you. And coming back to you, and I'll invite our viewers and listeners to type in any questions they want Supriya to answer, or even me, and I should take that in just a moment. So go for it and feel free. The next question, Supriya, for you is what are two or three things you can tell our listeners on what they can do to create, build, nurture a community?
Thanks, Elena. I want to take a moment and say your poem got me. It's beautiful. The fact that, sometimes you use these words together, but it's a beautiful poem. And for me, when I write poetry, I was talking to someone the other day, I only write when I feel like there's a hurt somewhere. In happiness, the poetry doesn't come. So, but this is a beautiful one. I would say I'm just going to take off from the poem itself. I think that's wonderful. And it has place in your next question that you're asking to say that, what can we do? We have become very independent. If you look at the ethos of India, we are unity in diversity. Those are things we've always spoken about. We always stand together. We faced many challenges together. And yet we are resilient. And I would say this is a global audience. It's true for most nations and everybody. And I think we're all surviving this together. So this is not only about India. This is all of us as human beings coming together. And yet I think there is a part of us which gets taught either in schools, colleges, institutions, or even in corporate life that be independent, have a point of view. Now, that is fine. But I think sometimes we get so independent that we forget to ask for help. At home, when there are women who have shouldered a lot more responsibility of the children, childcare, elder care, during the COVID times, they have been challenged a lot more because of the household inequity and many other challenges, because perhaps it does not come naturally to ask for help. So I would say the first thing on this platform is ask for help. I have stood up and asked my husband, my family, my parents, my colleagues, my team members, I've asked for help, saying these are the days when I can do this and these are the days when I cannot, or this is where I need help and this is where I don't. And I have vociferously come forward and openly said that please ask for help. So I think first is please do that. There is no shame in that. In fact, that is built on the essence of being together. There are so many people out there who are willing to help, but they don't know how and when to help you if you don't reach out. So that's my first mantra for myself and for everyone else. The second is, again, create your network. Network is very important. Helena, you and I discuss a lot more than perhaps only work. So I think that's how we get to know each other. We build on relationships because, again, the Harvard study, which is the longest longitudinal study, that says happiness comes from your friends, your communities. This is, again, back to social well-being. Who is in your network, your inclusive network of your friends, your family, your relatives, your colleagues? I think invest in them. Go deep in your relationships depending on how it works for you. Is it a large number or a small? But I think we need to move away from a lot of friends on our connected network, but very few 2 to 3 a.m. friends. I don't think that's true only for millennials. That's true for us in Gen X too. And across human race, let's invest in more friends that we can sit down, have a laugh with, share poetry with, and probably share a drink with, be tea, coffee. That's my second thing. Please build your inclusive network. And the last thing I would say is to say, at the end of the day, this is going to be a time that we need to go back and sometimes go deep within. And this is something me as a coach that says, figure out who you really are and what's your passion. And when you get drained by a lot of external things, what charges you? And I think that's a purposeful work you can only do with yourself within. I know what charges me. I've done a lot of deep thinking work. And I know when I talk to people, they can figure the energy in my voice completely shifts when I'm talking about a thing that I'm passionate about, be it reading, be it writing, be it doing something. So be very clear what charges you. It's not about charging your iPhones or Android phones. It's about charging charging you as a human being. So what is it, the socket? What socket are you going to plug yourself in and go from 0 to 100 in 30 minutes? Why should only technology companies talk about immediate charging and a longer battery life? Ask yourself, what's your battery life? And when it drains, how do you charge? So those are my three things that I would say. Ask for help, build your networks, and definitely figure out ways to charge you, because discharging is part of life. Charging is part of adapted life. So I'm back with your Darwin again. Adaptation is about figuring out what charges you.
Wow, what wonderful visual imagery that was. Like we plug in and my cell phone charges in 30 minutes. I have to figure out a way to do that for myself as well. And absolutely, a network, a community, and ability to outreach, first give and then kind of get, is a wonderful way to do it. So we have two or three comments that I want to read out. We have Sayed, who joined in from Zambia, and he kind of echoes what you've been saying, that unity is strength, and he couldn't really agree more. And we can overcome challenges, he says, if we are together. So there you go. We have another comment somebody made when you talked about network, saying our net worth is really a network. Our net worth is really a network. And there is no time like the pandemic now, Supriya, really, which has told us the power and the potential of network. In the month of March and April, it's not the richest person, it's not the celebrity who perhaps got the oxygen cylinder or the hospital bed, but a person who knew more people, who had better relationships, more deep, meaningful connects, who managed to not only perhaps try and get some help for themselves, but for their loved ones. And it was such a beautiful dichotomy at play. It really shocked many senior leaders as well. And it showed them the mirror saying, oh my God, I may be a great leader, but when push comes to shove, my associate could pull more favors and trade more emotions. My currency is not so strong, perhaps. So thank you for kind of making that point once again. The next question I have for you, and then I'll take one or two questions from our listeners and viewers, is that as a leader, Supriya, you've talked about few points, for Western digital, you've talked about generically what you should do. As a leader, what is your promise and your commitment going to be as we move forward, personally and professionally?
So, Helena, this has been a very reflective time. Like I said, I'm not just a fan of Socrates. I believe that, he kind of gets me and I get him. It's a very reflective way of life. So, what am I good at? What am I not good at? I think this has given me personally time to figure that out. I've realized when we come on forums as this, or when we as leaders talk to our people, it is not what we are communicating, it is what they're listening. And therefore, the choice of words, like Gautam Buddha said, choose your words carefully and be kind and be true. So I think those have been moments of reflection. There have been many blind spots that have got, lit to say, all right, empathy is number one. So I choose to be very empathetic. I make a choice now. It's definitely a moment to say we have survived with little bit of empathy in the past. Now it is paramount. It's front and center. So I think that is one personal shift that I have seen in myself as a leader. It is very important to me to understand how is Helena doing, what is on her mind, what is stressing her. Is there something we can do together? Can we just have a talk, then talk about anything else? So I think that part of me has come live, and it is part of everyday interaction. When I've spoken to my teams, my team members, every conversation has started with, how are you doing? What's on your mind? Are you okay? Is your family okay? Then the work has started. That is something that has started as a practice. It's becoming part of who I am. The other part as a leader, so one is that commitment. The second is flexibility. There is enough and more discussion to say that yes, everybody needs flexibility. I think we were earlier associating it only with women. Human beings need flexibility because we have a lot more to our lives than only work. So the commitment is to understand flexibility more and to make it part of our go-to future of work framework. I think that's critical. The third is, we've always said, and it's not in any order, but people first. Our focus is going to be, if there is a decision that is right, it has to be with people first. So what is our decision making? And therefore, where are the employees? If they are front and center, it's going to make a important part of our decision making. And if we are doing what is right by them, it makes sense. If not, we need to reevaluate, rethink. And I think those are some personal commitments, yes, and some part are cultural elements. I would go back to saying I'm happy to be part of a company that cares, that puts people at the center. And more importantly, we will contribute, continue to contribute to our communities that we operate and live in, and continue to live values of we care, and that is who we are, and that is something we have learned works, and that is something we commit to doing more and building forward. I think those are commitments that we will make happily.
Thank you. And you do know you're live, and you know this is getting recorded and shared across the world. So that is your accountability tracker right there for you. Thank you. Thank you for saying all of that, Supriya. And you talked about hope a little bit, and kind of jogs my memory. I'm such an avid Urdu poet, even in English literature, really. These lines by Faiz Ahmed Faiz in Hindi, then I translated in English, saying, "Dil na umeed to nahi, नाकाम ही तो है, लंबी है गम की शाम, मगर शाम ही तो है." The heart is saddened and broken, but it's not without hope. We're all going through our dark and troubling times, but we're going through it together. The sun has not yet set, so stay strong, stay together. I'm going to take a question from Justin Supriya. He's saying, his question to you is, how do you sensitize leaders to give team members the confidence to ask for help and not feel vulnerable?
Thank you. I'll come to that, Helena, in a second. So just if I want you to repeat this, please stay with me. I want to say one more thing. We always say there are phrases in English that, and I love your, shairi, the poem. I think that's just so beautiful. It's like we always say there is light at the end of the tunnel. What I have come to believe is let's light the tunnel too. Because the tunnel tends to give you hope as if it's dark. But let's just light a lamp while we are going through the tunnel. And I think that is what social well-being can do. We can light our lamps while we are going through the tunnel. We don't have to wait for the end of the tunnel. Tunnel sometimes can be long too. So I think let's light our lamps. Coming back to that question to say, how do we ensure there is a safe space created for employees to ask help and not feel vulnerable? So for me, I would say I'll begin with the last part. Vulnerability for me comes from a place of strength. If I can be on this forum live and be on many other forums live and be recorded, which is perfectly fine, I know that I'd like to be accountable. I'm very comfortable saying that I'm work in progress and I don't come all stitched together saying I'm everything fine. There are a lot of areas that I need to work on as human being, as leader, and therefore I'm on a journey, and I welcome the feedback to make me better, because at the end of the day the role is less about me, more importantly how I land on others and how my words land. So I would say it is a continuous journey. Some people will have their views, and that's okay as long as your inner core is very strengthened and comfortable with belief of who you are. Look at the title to the top, the name, Believe in Yourself. I think that helps, and I love that. So I would say as organizations, we have a lot of work to do. I think we are partnering actively with our human resources team, with our leadership development teams, to understand and to bring in a culture wherein our managers, who are the first touch point of their teams, understand, they are trained, they are taken through education, awareness, informational, instructional material, and then skill building to say how to create a safe space, how to operate without any lens. I think there is a lot of work that is cut out for many teams, and therefore their charters look very different today than they looked before. And I think there is tons of work. I'm very proud of the human resources team that works with me in our office, and of course our teams across the world. They understand this is something that is key, and therefore the work is underway. And I know that when I speak here as an industry leader, it is true for many organizations across the world where human resources team are leading the charter on how to build this as a culture. But I would also say that as employees feel empowered to raise your voice, speak what is on your mind, and then if needed, if things don't go a certain way, well, take some time out and have a conversation with your managers to say that this is how I felt. And always these conversations are best done one-on-one, and therefore take the time to seek out and have that conversation. Sometimes they don't know what they don't know, and you can be helping them in their journey too. I think overall coming from a place of confidence, and that is what is. So I will encourage you to speak up. That is something that I know I journey in my organization too. I think together we will evolve at a place where in the future, if not today, safe spaces will get created and it will be okay to ask for help. We have to make the first step, is where I'm coming from.
Now, I think that your message is loud and clear. Safe space, and it's time for authentic and vulnerable leadership, which is really the pinnacle leadership. So the time is now, and if not now, then when? And if not you and me, then who? So clearly
Yep.
the onus is on all of us together. And we have Agata, who's joined us from Poland. He's been making a couple of comments, and he says, let's believe in ourselves and let's believe in yourself. So absolutely. I mean, that's really the brand name of our company, and the purpose of the company is to help people live their dreams by believing in themselves and become the best version of who they are, who they possibly can be. And that's the reason we've kind of put this together with Western Digital. I'm just going to ask one last question, Supriya, and then perhaps it'll be time for us to say goodbye for today, till we are back online again next week. The question that we have coming up is, what's your view on digital well-being? Isn't that perhaps the new challenge?
Yes, so I like the way you put it as digital well-being. I would say that's got me a bit stumped. Interesting, very interesting way of putting it. So I would say yes, it's very, very important. I just recently concluded my PTO, 1 week off, and it was beautiful. Chose not to read it on Kindle, but chose to read a book, paperback, lovely. Chose to write and not use laptop. Very simple things. I'm very happy. Sometimes I want to write and I want to write so that it gets recorded. You don't have to go to the old typewriter days. You can edit, you can do the font, you can do all that, of course. But I also realize that that's not something that I want to do. I want to move away from digital, because if I switch on my laptop, I'm likely to go through my emails again. If it's time away from work, we need to practice. These are things I think we need to come forward and do it. And that's why I'm saying I am practicing. And I think it's a journey we all are walking on. There are times I know after 9 p.m. I don't look at my phone, try not to, unless there are global calls which I'm committed to as part of my job, and I honor them and I look forward to them. There are times when I know that post 9 p.m. I do not do that. So these are very small rules. If you read the book of James Clear, which is the Atomic Habits, it's wonderful how your habits can be small habits that you have can go a long way in building a life of peace, harmony, and success. So I would say digital well-being is very, very important. It's good to be digitally literate, to come forward and know, and in times of physical distancing, to be able to connect and know that. So I would say there is huge amount of digital literacy. That's good. Digital well-being, I'm assuming, is more to say stay away and kind of make sure that digital is not ruling your life and you're leaving place for people and social connects. And I would say this is again back to you. My view is very positive. My view is I love the technology. And yet, like any technology that has two sides, coin like has two sides, this also, if done in excess, can perhaps not be such a great idea. So rather than digital detox, small doses in measured ways and boundaries around, guardrails around as to when not to use it. Like I have a You'll probably not like me for saying this, but I do have a rule at my house to say on dining table, no mobile, no nothing allowed. And when my nephew visits me, he looks at me and says, "Oh my God, aunt, I'm not so sure I like you," because his life is his iPad and his phone. But you guess,
Oh,
your aunt loves you, but she wants to get more of you, and therefore there are certain rules and guidelines, because that's the time for family to connect. So I think those are important things. I would say look after your digital well-being, mental well-being, social well-being. Well-being is critical, and we need to start owning our lives and our well-being a lot more than perhaps we've owned in the past. Thank you for
no,
asking that.
wonderful. Thank you. And balance. It is truly about balance, and you continuously kind of brought that point up. Supriya, I'm breaking my own rule, and I'm allowed to because I'm the host. Archana here has been pinging nonstop to say one question, one question, one question. So I'm going to allow that. Even before I ask that question, I want everyone to know, in case, because there are questions coming like that in the chat window. Yes, this LinkedIn Live is getting recorded. It will be available on this handle for you to view anytime later. That's one. In case you have friends and family and children who want to see and are not on LinkedIn, it's also getting beamed on Twitter and Facebook. So you can kind of pick any channel to watch it, and do leave your comments and your observations, your opinions and your critique. It'll be useful for both Supriya and me as we go forward. So where is that question? Oh my God, there are so many. So Supriya, maybe afterwards you could look at that. So this question is from Archana.
You can look for that and I'll do the filler in for you. We together manage this. I would say when you send in the critique, be nice. Constructive criticism, I welcome. A criticism that makes me hide under my bed, I usually shy away from that. Be polite, words are kind, and we will get the strong message even if it's said politely. So let's be a little bit kind and nice to each other. Harlina, it was important to say
Yes.
that. Thank you.
No, that's as authentic as it gets. Okay, so here is the question. Again, it's a little bit of a tricky one, so that's a heads up for you. So Archana Jamini is saying, is it true that we can stick to being kind and forgiving when the opponents are completely, kind of trying to do you in? How do you handle that situation?
All right. You're asking someone who loves a good fight and loves a good challenge. And Helena, knows that beautifully well about me. I would say there are choices you need to make in life. What choices you make, life is going to be a sum and aggregation of that. There are people who are going to take us on. We are all going to find situations where we are meeting with unkind people. When we are meeting with people whose agendas may be at cross with our well-being, there is toxicity in the environment, which is why sessions like these are finding its place, which is why you're logging on. There is hope, promise, but more importantly, the foundation of this, all of this comes from positive psychology, positivity. Same thing can be said, but in a positive, Supriya, you talk so much. All right, that's one way to say it. The other way to say it, Supriya, when you talk slow or when you say this, we like it. A lot of kindness in words can help. So I would say, Archana, your situation is unique, so I don't come from any place of knowing it, understanding it, and therefore I'm going to give a very vanilla generic answer, but it may appeal to a situation, may not, because the context may not be something that I understand. But I would say there are those people. Life is too short, we've all understood, and therefore surround yourselves by people who are positive. How do you cut out people who are perhaps not so positive, and you work on them before you don't do that. That's the last option, of course. But I would say having a dialogue to begin with. I understand you're landing this on me. Is this right or wrong? Have a dialogue. That's usually a good approach to begin with. I understand you've done all of that and you're at a stage where people haven't changed. I'll definitely give credit back to you on that one. Well, then that's the time you need to make a choice to say, are these people needed in my life? If yes, in what context, and therefore, how is it that I'm surrounded? Be it work, be it any other place, there is no sense in being part of, be it in relationships. It's easier said than done. And trust me when I say this, I've come from a place where I have taken tough decisions and walked away from those people who just refuse to be positive in my life, and they brought toxicity. I have walked away. It has been painful effort of walking away from friends, from relationships, but I have done that knowing that my relationship to myself is so important that if you can't add good value to it, then perhaps we will meet some other time. But in this life, I don't think I want to continue with you being in it. So I think it's time to call out and make those choices. You may miss them for some time, but you know what? The beauty is you're perhaps even in those relationships you weren't getting anything. So I think understanding that, pausing, reflecting, going through the process, dialoguing, discussing, debating, putting your foot down, putting boundaries around, all of that work. And if not in the end, well, making the surgical cut is very important. If a limb is infected, you want your whole life to be good, your body to be good, you got to chop the limb. We've all heard doctors and surgeons say that. Life is much more than a part or a limb that we carry. And therefore, that's what my um, not so positive, but positive for you and positive for us as human beings answer is.
Thank you for answering that. You have many thank yous and people who kind of concur with your point of view coming in the chat window. So with that,
Thank
I
you.
will like to end, and I want to acknowledge something that just popped up on my screen. A person saying, and I missed his name. His comments just kind of went up, saying, "What a beautiful coming together of two beings. One a large technology global company, and the other niche entrepreneurial firm, who could have used this 1 hour far more effectively to survive and thrive and grow their own businesses and themselves. And they chose to be here with us doing this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you as well. And yes, really, Supriya, thank you for being with us on the show. Couldn't have asked for anyone better. Anyone who's kind of so passionate and speaking from the heart. You are fearless when you talk about your passions, and you're truly committed when you make a promise. So, which says a lot about you. So, with that, everyone, we bring this formally to an end. Yes, the woods are dark and deep, and we do have miles to go before we all sleep. So, until we meet again, bye for now.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Helena. Thank you, everyone.
We'll leave